Hey the berries, hope you're doing well. Bizzleberry here, bringing you a support Soraka guide for 2024. Been a little while since we've brought out these support guides that I usually do every year. We're going to be starting off with this season with a Soraka one. We will be covering Nami and Sona in the near future once they've had their reworks done kind of in the 14.7 patch, which is next week. If you're new to my kind of style of guides, it's more of kind of a lecture style kind of guides where we'll go through runes, we go through everything, runes, items, my personal favorite build orders and why you should go them, and a ability rundown if you want them, some little tips and tricks here and there. But generally it's going to be like a 30-minute, 40-minute video of me talking. You might want to have a notepad ready, but I will have timestamps at the bottom of the video. A hot drink like I've got here might be useful just to kind of relax and kind of understand how to play Soraka in 2024. So the runes here are fairly standard if you're used to playing Soraka or most enchanters. We've got Summon Airy, Mana Flow Band, Transcendence, and Gathering Storm. You don't want to take Scorch at all. Enchanters this season are very much more on the more passive approach to gameplay. That's going to be happening across the board with every single enchanter that we're going to be looking at. Definitely more kind of passive playstyle rather than getting to harass a huge amount in the laning phase at all. You're better off just taking the Gathering Storm where you get amplified ability power every 10 minutes. In the Resolve secondary tree, we've got the most important rune out of all of them, really, the Revitalize, giving health, healing and shooting power, and that's also stronger when the target that you're healing is on or below 40% HP. Here you have like a couple of options here in terms of what secondary kind of resolve rune that you want. I generally go bone plating. You can go into conditioning if you're going up against like another enchanter and you're not expecting to die in laning phase. So that kicks in a little bit later on into the game, just after the laning phase really kind of ends, but it does give you 8 armor, 8 magic resistance, and a bit more on top with the 3%. So that will give you more durability against assassins, or if you're getting focused down a little bit later into the game, could save you from 1 or 2 auto attacks worth of damage or abilities. So it is worth taking if you are up against like a Sona, just like someone else really passive, like maybe like a Yumi kind of lane as well. If you feel like you're going to get chipped down a bit, you can go second wind if you want to, but you don't have that much health on Soraka, so you're not going to get a massive amount from second wind, but is an option. But bone plating is generally the one you're going to be wanting to take in, because if you're up against like a hard engage like a Pike or a Leona, bone plating is probably the thing that's going to save you. And then we're going into double adaptive down here, which will increase the amount of ability power that you have. You don't really need ability haste or cooldown reduction on Soraka. W goes on quite a low cooldown anyway, but if you felt like you wanted that, you could take that. And then I generally have been leaning more towards health scaling per level. But if I was up against like a Blitzcrank or a Pike, I probably would go flat health just to give myself a little bit more health, like level 1, level 2. If I were to make a misplay and get grabbed or like hooked or whatever, then the extra health here will be more beneficial in the very early stages of the laning phase. It's just that the health scaling is better from level 7 onwards. So for the majority of the game, the health scaling is better. And even if like you're only like level 4, level 5, you're only missing around about 15 to 25 HP anyway, so it's not like the worst. It's not that bad really, even early the health scaling one, so I've been leaning more towards health scaling lately. What we're going to do is we're going to go into the practice tool, going to lock in Soraka, talk about summoner while we're going into there, and then we'll look at items and then abilities. So let's get us into the practice tool. Now, I'd highly recommend a practice tool if you are looking to learn to playing a new champion. It's really useful to be able to put down like training dummies and things like that. So let's find Soraka. And generally, yeah, we're going heal majority of the time. If your AD carry is adamant about taking heal, you're probably taking exhaust, just keeping things passive in the lane. We'll do base model just in case you don't own a skin. And yeah, so summoning heal is really good. It works through Revitalize, so the extra healing and shielding power that you get from that rune works with the summoning heal too, so that's pretty nice. So I'm gonna have a sip of my hot chocolate. What we're getting in, but Soraka has been really good for me, and I know it's been good for a lot of people that have been watching my content. Soraka's one of a lot of people's favorites enchanters, one of the most popular on the channel, hence why we're kind of covering her here. We are going to give ourselves a boatload of money here. And while we're at it, we're going to go straight to level 18 because we can. And I'm just going to level up all of my abilities. We're level 18. Will never happen in the Soda Q game, unfortunately. But one can live the dream. Going to give myself auto-refreshing health, mana, and cooldowns. So infinite cooldown reductions. And we're just going to turn the minions off. Right, so for item wise, when you're playing, honestly for like most of the enchanters anyway, a lot of the items you'll be building very similar. There's a lot of rune and item similarities between all of the enchanter champions. But you'll be picking up World Atlas. So if you're new to season 2024, World Atlas is like from previous seasons, it's all of them combined into one. So you've got like the there's a target, I can't remember what it's called now, it's been such a while. Is it Targans before, where you execute minions to get gold? Or you can harass with spell thieves equivalent from previous seasons to get gold too. So you might be a bit confused by that, but that's basically all one item combined. What World Atlas does have is the two combinations, the spell thieves and the Targans melee minion execute plus when you harass enemy champions you get gold, but it doesn't have any ability power on. So if you were used to picking up something like Spell Thieves from previous season, your damage on every single support will be going down. So you don't have like the AP or the AD. So that's an unfortunate side effect from having the World Atlas. Now, one of the really, really good things about World Atlas though is that kind of similar still to how the previous items worked if you're used to that. So once you hit 400 gold now, it's changed from 500 to 400. You get the war charges. So you then get 3 war charges on the item, and then when you get 800 gold total on the item, you won't generate any extra bonus gold for last hitting minions or harassing enemy champions, but the item will convert into 1 of 5 items of your choosing, and you can take this in lane, so it converts in the lane. You'll get like 5 little buttons above there where I'm pointing. There'll be 5 icons there. You're looking for Dream Maker when you're playing pretty much any enchanter. As you see, like the enchanter builds are very, very similar. Just take Dream Maker. Basically, whenever you shield or heal an ally, you will basically give them some bubbles. Do we have Shield Maker? Are we allowed to look at it in the shop here? Dream Maker, sorry. So here we can see it. So healing or shielding another ally blows dream bubbles to them, empowering them for 3 seconds. The next incoming damage is reduced, and the next hit is increased. So it gives them a damage buff when they hit, and it also reduces the next bit of damage they take. Just happens passively, so it's a really nice passive extra buff when you're healing people and stuff. Next, into items, you're generally going CDR boots as quickly as possible. Soraka is really, really squishy and pretty immobile as it is. CDR boots is meta on every single support. On enchanter wise, the exception could be Janna for boots of swiftness, but generally I need boots of lucidity every single time, and I personally rush this. In this season as well, the item path tree is not just like boots straight into tier 1 boots into like the actual boots themselves. You have this mini component as well, this glowing mote that you can pick up. So if you don't quite have the amount of gold for it, you can do boots and then a glowing mote. And then when you next get back into shop on your next recall, then you can get the boots of lucidity. And then you are going to absolutely want to buy Moonstone Renewer first item. There is like no exception here for Soraka. Moonstone Renewer does a ton of extra healing for whoever you are healing. It's just simple as that. Also, you can chain the heal over, so if there's another ally nearby, not including yourself, they also receive a portion of that heal too. If there are no allies nearby, the person that you're healing receives an extra 30% bonus on top. So it's a really, really good item. If it's just like you and your AD carry on bot lane, for example, and you're just spam healing your AD carry, your AD carry is going to get healed an absolute crap ton from this. So it's actually a pretty insane item. So every game you're picking up Moonstone. And then it starts to get interesting. Ignore Warmogs, like Warmogs builds, no. You got 3 options. You got Redemption, you have Ardent Censer, and you have Staff of Flowing Water. Now generally, Staff of Flowing Water has the best gold value, like full stop, if you are able to apply it on multiple different people. It as an individual item is good, but it goes crazy worth and value if you are able to give 5 people Staff of Flowing Water buff at the same time. Soraka ult does that. She can heal 5 people at the same time. So in the middle of a team fight, giving 5 people Staff of Flowing Water is pretty insane. Giving everyone ability power, but honestly the most important thing there is the 10% movement speed bonus. You see up there it's 10%. Very, very, very good item. If you are used to previous seasons with Shrillias, is basically, this is like Shrillias on crack, basically. That's the best way to put it. You're picking up this on, once again, on the enchanters the majority of the time. Even if you have an AD carry heavy team, the movement speed, just having movement speed means that you can take less damage, but also can deal more damage just because you are allowed to move into certain areas where you wouldn't have been able to before. So even though it doesn't directly contribute to a raw number, being able to increase the potential of not dying or chasing up and making a kill is absolutely massive. So Staff of Flowing Water is pretty good, and usually you have 1 or 2 people on your team that can benefit the AP ratio here, and Soraka can as well because she gets the Staff of Flowing Water buff whenever you heal someone. So generally you're looking, my personal option here is like Staff of Flowing Water. If you have a very auto-attacking team, like if you have a Vayne, a Cogmore, someone like that in the bot lane that you're laning with, and they're doing well, go Ardent. Otherwise, generically go Redemption, I think is a very good item. And then you can completely wrap up the build here by going like an Ardent Sensor if you want to. I generally don't really bother with Shrillias. Also, Soraka isn't very good at applying Grievous Wounds, so Morellonomicon is really out of the question, so you don't have to worry about applying Grievous Wounds to enemy. Dawn Core is too expensive. Keep an eye on this item because if you're watching this video maybe like 2 or 3 months down the line, currently 2,700 gold. If this goes down to like 2.5k, Dawn Core could be a nice item to kind of wrap up the build instead of going Redemption. And you could go into like Dawn Core and then wrap it up with like a Redemption or an Ardent Sensor. That's totally possible. But for now it's Redemption just because of how cheap it is, and you can use it while dead. And also it kind of complements Soraka's kit quite nicely because you're wanting to sometimes heal people from really, really far away with your ulti. You can do that also with Redemption. It's got quite a big range there too. So what I have in my bags here is pretty much the full build, a standard full build on Soraka. So Moonstone into Staff of Flowing Water, into a Redemption or Ardent, and then picking up the other item that you missed. And then on the World Atlas, you're always taking Dreammaker. So that is the item build for Soraka. Ability skill order next. Probably shouldn't have leveled myself up to maximum, but generally when you're doing the laning phase, you are doing 2 to 3 points in Q. And then you're maxing your W. And then usually you're maxing your Q, you're finishing off like maxing your Q with the next couple of points, unless you urgently need the silence. So let me go through her abilities and then I'll explain why. So Soraka's passive is Salvation. She gets a massive movement speed bonus when moving towards allied champions that are below 40% HP. The range on this is absolutely absurd. So from around about here, say if someone's stand like 40% HP here, you will zoom to them like an ambulance, okay? You go full max speed, zoom, 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 and it means you can get into range to heal people. You can kind of use this also to like not heal people up. So say like you're left behind in a really awkward situation. If you don't, and the low health person is like in a safe area, you can use the fact that they're low health as a movement speed boost to go to that person. So that you can get yourself out of a weird and bad situation. Now, it doesn't happen too often that kind of situation arises, but it saved me a couple of times by like not pressing my alt buttons so they don't get healed up so I can get away, if that makes sense. Soraka's Q, Starkle, does magic damage and it slows the enemy champion. Also, if you land this on an enemy champion, you get a rejuvenation buff, which is a heal over time, which is important, so take note of that. Rejuvenation buff when you land Starkle on an enemy champion. So let's put down some target dummies. Put an ally one and an enemy one. So this is her Q. Just drops down slowly from the air. When it lands, it slows the enemy champion, and then it gives you that rejuvenation buff. You can see the rejuvenation buff just here on my passive kind of window, just above the Soraka portrait on the bottom there above my spells. So there we go, you can see it ticking over. Now, I've targeted my ally champion. I've targeted my ally champion right next to me. Top left-hand corner is the stats. So if I land Starkle on the enemy target dummy, I'll get rejuvenation. But then if I use my W, my heal, on the allied champion, it passes that rejuvenation buff over. So if I Q, I get the rejuvenation buff. I W to heal, and they've also getting the rejuvenation buff. The rejuvenation buff is not just a heal, it also gives you movement speed as well. So it's worth just popping every now and then. Even if they're full health, if they're looking to collapse in to engage, that movement speed can be really, really helpful. And as you might have guessed, W heals. So W heals allied champion. It will always cost you maximum health if you don't have a rejuvenation buff going. So generally it's really important that you do land that Q. Then pass that W over, otherwise you will be spending your own health in order to heal the ally. Now usually it's not too bad of a cost in terms of like your own health, but generally you're going to want to have that rejuvenation buff, not just for the heal and the movement speed, the heal over time, but also just to make sure that you don't lose too much HP is very important in lane, especially to try and get that as much as possible. Now if you want to top up your AD carry, for example, and you've got a lot of health, it's okay to do that, just bear in mind it will eat up a bit of your HP, but usually it's worth doing just to make sure that they're topped up and safe. E, the Equinox, is the silence. Now this is the thing that Soraka players mess up on a lot, so listen up and be is open, okay? So Equinox is an E instant silence. After a short delay, it then roots anyone's that inside. One of the things that Soraka players do the most is they keep pressing E and pressing E and pressing E and pressing E in lane, and then they get ganked and they have no E. It's really important to acknowledge when you're loading in a Soraka any important targets that you need to silence and maybe need to have ready in lane. Equinox isn't cheap to use, it's quite an expensive spell. Early on in lane it's going to cost you 70 mana, which is quite a bit. The damage is okay if you're able to hit more than one target, which you can, it's an AoE. You're going to get double the value, which is pretty nice. So if you are ever harassing with E, make sure you try and hit double targets to get double value. Then it becomes really good value. Also, it's going to proc like the mana flow band as well. But if you are playing against something like a Rammus or a Nunu, channeled abilities in particular, you want to keep your silence. Or if you know the enemy jungler is bot side and looking to gank bot lane, have your silence ready, because it's going to help you in a pinch to get out of like really bad spots. Because what you can do is to interrupt Nunu Snowball, and you can interrupt Rammus Powerball by just silencing over on top of them. It cancels that channel. And then if you say you're being ganked by, I don't know, let's just say, I don't know, there's a jungler coming down. Let's just say a jungler, doesn't really matter, Lee Sin or something. Lee Sin is coming towards us. You generally want to like have the silence hit the tip of them, but you want to have this circle buffer towards you so that if they keep pursuing across that circle, they're likely going to get rooted after that circle delay explosion root thing, okay? So make sure you're trying to cover as much distance in between you. Sometimes you're not even getting the silence on them. Sometimes it's like, say, if you're running away, you're just putting it on the ground. Just creating that invisible wall almost that they're there. Because if they go through it, they're going to get rooted and they won't be able to pursue you. So they're just going to have to go all the way around it. And it's going to be super annoying for them. So having a silence up in certain situations like that can be really, really nice. Every step. And then you've also got your Q also slows as well. So if they're slowed, you can maybe try and see if you can root them as well, because they're slowed, so it's going to be harder for them to get out. They're going to be maybe a bit more panicky. So there's some setup there as well that you can do. And then finally, Soraka's ultimate, her wish, is a global. You can actually, it's a global heal, and you can actually use this on targets that are in Zhonya's, so if they're stasised. So it can be really kind of clutch, like if you're seeing like a really low health ally, and then like on 10% HP, you can put like your silence under them to protect them from any assassins, and you can also pop your ulti as well to kind of like bait the enemy team going from 10% to 40%. Even though you can't click on them, the ulti will go through and heal. Now it is global. You will be needing to pay attention once you have that, whether you want to use it on allies across the map. So even though you're all the way on bot side, you can heal someone on top. You are generally going to want to try and work with your revitalize as well with this, because healing targets below 40% HP. Healing is increased by like another 25%, I think that value is. So it's really important to try and save it when your allied champion is below 40% HP, because you get that, plus also you get the revitalize kicking in too, which is really, really, really nice. So some common mistakes that Soraka players do is that they either use the ulti too late, or they use it on a target that's going to die anyway, and then you have your ultimate on cooldown, and then you have to wait a couple of minutes for it to be back off cooldown. So this is really, really important early on into the game. Because early into laning phase, you're going to have a situation where someone top might need your ult heal, and say if they're being ganked by like 2 or 3 people, in that case generally is not necessarily worth the ult heal them, because if you ult heal that person up top, they're just going to die anyway. That means your ultimate's on cooldown, and it means that you're fighting in a 2v2 situation with no ultimate. So you got to be really, really careful and decide, think really carefully about when you want to pop this, but you don't want to think too hard though, because you might pop the ulti heal after they've already died, which I've done a couple of times. So you wouldn't be the only one. So make sure that you're making those quick decisive moments whether or not you're going to ult someone or not. Sometimes it's better just to give it to them. Just for mental state as well, because sometimes you will get flamed for not using your ultimate and that your ally died, even though they probably would have died anyway. So do you think about a little bit whether or not it's worth healing the person on the opposite side of the map? You know, player mentality, and how much that's going to put you behind in bot side for the next 2 minutes by not having an ultimate down there to fight in a 2v2 situation. Now, I feel like we've already covered a good amount of tips and points here in the ability section. Just trying to think if there's anything else extra that I really want to add. Nope, not really, because I've already kind of covered everything. So yeah, that was kind of short and snappy and straight to the point, and I kind of like that. That was good. But yeah, just to kind of wrap everything in together, you're playing really, really passively in lane. Like, you can early on go for those Q harassments. That's great. Pro tip for Starcore though, if you do find yourself closer towards the enemy location, it does drop a lot quicker. So if you go like max range here, you can see how long that takes. Whereas if we were like really close, it drops like near instantly. So it's like it makes it a lot harder for the enemy to dodge, and it means that you're going to get that revitalize. Against champions that have poke and aren't too deadly in terms of catching you out, getting this Q poke basically win every trade, and you can try and weave some extra auto attacks in to do more damage. And if they try and auto attack you back, well, you've got that revitalized heal over time kicking in, so you'll win every single trade kind of doing that anyway, as long as it's not like a hard engage collapse. If you are finding yourself up against a hard engage, try and silence the enemy AD carry, because if it means they're rooted, it might be more difficult for them to follow up. There are a couple of minor exceptions to that. Pyke, for example, Pyke has a channel on his Q, which is his grab. You can, if you're quick enough, you can silence him. There's like a very finite window where Pyke can release his Q and still get his hook out, but 80-90% of the time you're going to be interrupting Pyke's hook if you're very quick at silencing. So if you are up against a Pyke player, Soraka actually can do a very decent job at countering him if you want to still play an enchanter. Now, if you're similar in fashion, if you're playing up against a Blitzcrank or something like that, and you can see they're heading towards you, same thing kind of applies. You're silencing and making that void gap in between you and the engage. What that silence is going to do is going to throw them off. Like, usually Blitzcrank wants to get into a perfect position, then hook. If he's silenced, you can't press the hook button. So it gives you some time to like move back away and kind of reposition and think about what you want to do in that regard. But yeah, generally it's like a lot of it's just Q, and then you're healing your ally a lot, and then you're using your health bar is like the main thing here. The health bar is your main resource between harassing the enemy team and not. You're not always going to get a kill on bot lane, but you are going to out sustain them, which means you can generally get more turret plates off your enemy turrets, which is going to give you a lot more gold and resources anyway, and you can deny enemy minions. So you can get ahead that way rather than actually going for kills. And also, if you are able to make a clutch ultimate heal on someone on top, you're going to get that assist bonus, which is like 150 gold, and you kept your top laner alive, and that means that you're making map plays by not even having to be there. So, and that's like one of the most powerful things about Soraka, is that you're able to alter the map state just with your ulti. So yeah, it can be really nice, especially when paired up with other globals on your team as well. Like if you've got like a Shen or a Twisted Fate, it makes the whole team's map presence like kind of insane at that point, because you've all got ultimates, so it can alter the early and mid game pretty nicely. But yeah, other than that, you're basically just like in team fights and stuff, you're trying to stay back as far as possible. Do not overextend to do star calls later on into the game. Wait until the enemy comes nearer to you and on top of your AD carry, and then kind of like do the star call there, and then start spam healing your AD carry and then ulting and using redemption if you need to. You can easily heal a full AD carry's health bar in like 2 seconds in the mid to late game if you need to. There's the Dreammaker buff that we were looking for. And then warding wise, I usually get asked warding questions, so I'll briefly go over it into this video. If I can find the teleport, is it Shift T? No. Shift S? Yes. So favorite brushes to ward currently are this one here. This banana brush here is really good, because if you're up against an enemy support that likes to roam, that's going to catch them at the majority of the time. So you could be running back from base. You could be, you know, walking out of base from this kind of fashion here like this, and you're coming across. You know, sometimes you have the plant here, so you can kind of like scout out on that direction to kind of see that you're safe. And then you're putting your ward down in the brush. Standard tri brush here is absolutely fine. Same on the other side. If you are finding yourself here toward this brush here and this plant's up, give it a whack, because it gives you vision into the enemy jungle briefly, and also gives you means that the enemy team can't use that against you and clear your own vision. If the enemy bot lane aren't there and you just like knocked them out of lane, if you can get a ward here, that is super duper fantastic, because then you can see exactly who's coming back down into the lane. It's going to give you an idea to see if the enemy junglers can be doing Gromp soon or not. There's a couple of really nice valuable wards. These are like probably the 3 most valuable wards. This triangle here if you are playing on blue side. If you're on the opposite side of the map, if you're playing, you know, red side, you know, you got this tri brush here, or the pixel brush, depending on how far you're able to push in and stuff and get that vision. Once again, if you're on red side, you can still do the banana brush, just to see rotations coming through. It's not as effective if you're on blue side, but it's still pretty good if you're on red side. If you are feeling about being a bit deeper in terms of vision, then just get a ward down here for your mid laner. So you've got a couple of nice like little ward options there, and occasionally you're going to want to put a ward in the lane, especially if you're getting pressed in or if there's a hard engage, just to see if they're up to anything sneaky. You know, if you're kind of hemmed in here, it's good to have a ward there just to see if the enemy jungler is coming through here, or if they're planning a engage, or seeing if they're rotating off into mid or doing the dragon. So this is some very good like laning phase kind of warding tips. It's the same if you're on red side actually as well. The kind of brush here that we were talking about, seeing who's coming into the lane or not. You got one here too. Can be pretty valuable to see like if enemy jungler is doing their Krugs. Yeah, you can see who's coming through the lane. Sometimes like some of the most powerful ganks honestly come through just people just walking through the lane. And ignoring these kind of brushes and stuff anyway. So it's really nice and valuable to see. Especially if you're up against like champions that have ultimates that have movement like Nocturne or Talia, can kind of come through in like that too. So it can be pretty valuable. Anyway, hope you find this Soraka guide in 2024 valuable. Hope you kind of like the Electro style. We're going to be doing more of these in the next coming months with Soraka. Well, Soraka we just did. Nami, Sona, Janna. We're going to be doing a lot of the enchanters. We're going to probably do a couple of Brand, Azira, and we'll do like a couple of hard engage supports as well. But yeah, hopefully the build path kind of helps you out. Hope you guys enjoy the content. Please subscribe if you like playing support on League of Legends, and yeah, appreciate you. See you for another video tomorrow. Bye.